Hi guys, it's Adam here, and I'm going to be going through and talking about the survey today and the results of it overall, diving into it, just like we did last time. I had a lot of good feedback about that last podcast, so I'm going to keep with that same trend, try to keep it to about 30 minutes here. And I know these surveys are divisive, especially when they come back and you don't necessarily agree with it. I've had it happen myself where something comes back and I don't agree with it at all. I remember probably about a year ago, Archer and Malu had a fight, and I thought it was like match of the year candidate, and it was amazing. And then only like two other people voted for it, and I've obviously had instances where someone is really popular with the votes, and I didn't really think they did much, or vice versa. So I get that they're divisive, but I really appreciate the feedback, and I like seeing people get happy about seeing them, and they're excited, and they talk about it. And then at the same time, it doesn't actually bother me all that much when people get upset about it, because it's generating conversation. I think that's the most important thing to take away from it, which is why I really like it, and why I'm going to be going over, how I voted, what I was thinking, kind of give everybody a chance to see what I think about your character itself, and then how did that play into the Consequence pay-per-view, which I'm in the same boat as Tibby. I didn't necessarily love it. I didn't think it was great. I think there was definitely better shows, but there were a lot of things that really were positive about it that I like to point out, because, it's what you should do. You should be pointing out the good things that happened. So the first thing that I should get started with here is, question number one: which 6 male active superstars had the biggest impact leading into Consequence? The top 5 were B17 with 21 votes, H2O was 17, Rex was 15, Nate Ortiz was 15, Alaparca with 10. And then running down that list, Russ Cole is right after that, 9, Justin got 8, Trance at 8, Slammy Reese, Mark Reese 6, Trey Golden got 5, and that's actually where I'm going to stop right now. I'll run down the list a little bit more. This has been a common kind of thing that I've seen, a common trend that's been happening ever since today's survey started. It's always the person who's at the top of Riot, the person who's holding the OCW championship, in this case H2O, it always gets good votes, always gets a good number of votes to come in for them to be the most influential. H2O did that, Cass did that, Doc Green, absolutely did that. But the problem has always been the challenger. The challengers to the OCW title never get as much shine. They really don't. Trey, ever since he's been challenging, hasn't been getting that much love. And, Rust was at 9 votes. He beat him quite convincingly. I think people look at Rust and see a much more worthy challenger to Trey, which is a big reason why I said, hey, Trey just doesn't seem like he's gotten over that hump yet. And you've seen this happening. Anytime that there's a feud that's ongoing, the title holder on Riot gets a lot more love than the challenger. And I think that always kind of holds it back from being the most viewed, being the most anticipated matchup on the card. The last time I can remember that people were truly like 100% behind both the contender and the challenger was when we were talking like H2O and Cass going at it, or Doc Green and B17 going at it. In Turmoil, we don't have that much of a problem with it. We have something very similar in terms of the top title holder usually gets the most votes, but the challenger is usually up in that top 5 as well. So it just seems like there's a better connection between challenger and contender on Turmoil than there is on Riot. I don't necessarily know the reason for it. It's just a trend that I've noticed. Elliot Parker got 5 votes as well. He was right behind Trey. Court Marshall at 4, Doc Green at 4, TY at 4, JT at 4, Azu at 4, Antonio at 3. That surprised me a lot. Salami Kane at 2. I think that surprised quite a few people as well. So, who I voted for ultimately, I voted B17, H2O, Rex, and then I voted Russ Cole. I then voted for Elliot Parker. And the reasoning behind this is top 2 title contenders really driving the story forward. Rex is always at the top right there. So, that's my justification for Rex is always a prominent figure. H2O is always a prominent figure. B17's been on a good roll lately. So that was the justification for B17, H2O, and Rex. And Rust, I really view as the best next challenger to H2O, and because he's been so involved in everything and the swerves that have been ongoing, I really appreciate his storyline right now, so I voted for him as well. Elliot Parker, that may have come as a surprise. The next consideration, I voted for Nate Ortiz as well, but I was thinking about voting for Trance in place of Elliot Parker, but in the end, I really said to myself, Elliot has some really big victories lately. He's the FI title holder or contract holder. He's threatening to cash in all the time. He beat me, and then he goes on to secure himself a number 1 contendership against Antonio Everett. To me, that was a lot of momentum in just a few short weeks. I definitely thought that he deserved to be represented in that voting. All right, here. So let's see. Other people, Drago got 1, Archer got 1, Danny Watts got 1, Baker got 1. All right. So moving on here, scrolling right on down the list here. Which 2 active females were you most entertained by leading into Consequence? Essentially, this is the same thing with the males. It's the influential one. I didn't name it as influential, and I think that might have kind of caused a few people to look at it and vote potentially a little differently here. But Ashley Moore, she got 13 votes. Flojo got 10. Valkyrie got 10. Debbie got 7. Blaine got 5. Cole got 2. Tara got 2. Angelo got 1. Someone voted not Ashley Blaine for the other category. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. But this is... the female division has been in a lot of flux lately, ever since Empress left. It has not been dominated lately by Valkyrie. It has been really an open category. Ashley Moore has really started to stand out, and then her victory against Valkyrie was very unexpected. I think a lot of us can agree that it was something that it is going to happen when you're in comp situations. You're going to see people losing in such fashion sometimes, but I think all of us were taken back by how handily Ashley Moore really did take it to Valkyrie. So Ashley, took top spot. I voted for Ashley. Flojo came in second, was 10, and I really want to see Flojo, get over the hump, and I want to see her, move on and be successful. But I've said before, Flojo kind of feels much like Trey, just hasn't had that moment yet, and has had a lot of opportunities. I really felt like her best opportunity is right now, so I hope something comes of that. But I actually didn't vote for Flojo. The 2 that I had to say I was most entertained by were Moore and Valkyrie, because they were the people that were involved in the most prominent storyline with the female division. Another person I think is doing great. Gotta give kudos to Jake. Debbie D has really stood out, and I'm really happy to see Zoe return as well. I think the division will be all right with Valkyrie departing. I would really like to see some more fresh faces in there. But playing into the number 1 contender match that's coming up next week, there's a big reason why I decided, okay, I'm going to identify the number 1 contender matches in this survey as well. So moving on. With the announcement of the Fatal 4-Way match to become the number 1 contender for the OCW Women's Championship, who would you most like to see win? I voted for Flojo because, like I said before, I feel like this is the best opportunity for Flojo to really, get over that hump and establish herself as a prominent character, as someone who can, continue to work to lead the division moving forward without Valkyrie, without Empress around. So Flojo actually did win that. She got 11 of the votes, which is 44%. The next highest was Blaine at 7. And I think that might have happened because people... Well, I have... Blaine has that storyline that was ongoing with Moore for the longest time. Moore was, kind of making Blaine do all these things and align with her because, Blaine didn't have any financial status. And that story's over with, but it was left to finish in the future. But I think some people might have voted that way because there was that great perception that Velk was going to most likely be the victor in that case, and Blaine versus Velk has always been one of those really prominent matches And I myself would love to have the opportunity. Not going to get that chance anymore, but I've had a great time fighting Valk. The matches have always been incredibly competitive. Maybe a little tense, but, put on good shows, and I'm happy about that. Third place was Debbie D, and then fourth place was Zoe with 3 votes. So FloJo took this one relatively easily. People are still behind FloJo, and they want to see her succeed overall. But it's got to happen. We'll see what happens. FloJo's got to get over the hump. Got to win these matches. It might be a hybrid league. Hybrid just means you're going to continuously get a lot of opportunities to shine. But ultimately, to be the top, you got to win these matches. You got to win the number 1 contender match. Then you got to go on and win the actual title match itself. So, moving on. There's not just one number 1 contender match here. There's going to be another one. And it's going to be Archer versus Grimm. And Archer's coming off of his storyline with Doc Green. He lost that matchup at Lucian, perceived as a face from my perspective, lost all his money, currently working at the Roadhouse, trying to secure a financial future. I don't know if you saw the RP lately, but it seems like Archer has some devious motives, that he might have been using Las Vegas to be... to kind of allow him to circumvent the idea that he lost all his money. He might have something up his sleeve. Grimm, meanwhile, came off of a fantastic storyline with Justin Jest, and there's always that limbo period. What's this person going to go on and do next? I saw him asking for matches, or not matches, but a feud for the future in the chat, which is a good idea, but sometimes it's not so bad just to kind of float around a little bit and see what might pop up. Because if you're always planning on feuds and you have it lined up for the next 7 months or the next 2 or 3 feuds, well, then there might be that opportunity where someone comes free and you really wanted to work with them, but you already made promises to somebody else. Sometimes it's not so bad just to kind of sit around for a month or 2, just have some matches, nice and relaxed, character build, and then find something from there. You don't always have to be in a feud. They're great to do. But ultimately, sometimes it's not bad to just... go with the flow, see what happens. But in the end here, you were supposed to vote for the person you'd like to see challenged next. Grimm won by 1 vote, 13-12. I voted for Archer because I felt Archer would be a more appropriate challenger at this time. Grimm is getting there, but Grimm, takes the vote here. I'm thinking a lot of people might have voted this way just to see fresh faces. Jamie has quite a few outs, especially with Slammy Reese winning the tag team championships and being heavily involved in that, and then Jacob Trance is back, and he might be involved in title pictures. We don't know. He's certainly been involved in the title picture recently. So this might just be kind of a case of alt fatigue, which we'll talk about a little bit later here. But Grimm takes this one. Archer lost by 1 vote. Pretty close, though. Definitely within a range of saying, could go on either way. Lucha Country has clearly run away with the Tag Team Classic. Obviously, we're talking, and we already know what happened with the Tag Team Classic, and it was a much closer match than many of us probably expected. And Golden Cobra came in dead last. They only had 1 vote here. B2O had 6 votes, but Hollywood USA was the runaway choice. I voted for Hollywood USA. I wanted to see them have one more shot at Lucha Country. I felt that they were the best, I don't know the word, synergized tag team, that they really had the best work ethic together. They did things really well. They worked off of each other really well. Their promos have been fantastic. Jess is a fantastic writer. Cord is a fantastic writer. You put them together, and you really have something special there. So I voted for them. I wanted to see them move on to get the opportunity to face Lucha Country next. So I asked you guys to, instead of ranking matches, to rank storylines over the last couple of weeks. So I wanted you to identify your favorite to least favorite storyline over the past few weeks. Kind of took a little bit of time to think this one through here. You had to really consider, okay, what's happening with multiple people, and that can be difficult if you're kind of just, jolting in and out and taking a look at what's happening with this person and with this person. But ultimately, I felt it was necessary to see how people view the importance of the storylines. Once in a Lifetime, Nate versus Trance. I knew going in that this was going to be the one I voted for, and ultimately that's what most people agreed with. They got 8. They got 8 of the 24. People really identified this as being their favorite storyline. It was my favorite storyline as well. The Real Mr. Turmoil, Rex versus B-17. This is a storyline that you could make an argument has been going on for 3 years. And it just finally has come to a conclusion. I'm really happy that it's come to a conclusion. I've really enjoyed working on the story for the long term with Rex. We've always been working together in some capacity. Even when I was over on Riot, we had interactions with each other. We always knew it was going to come back and that we'd end up facing each other again. And the Last Man Standing match just really felt like it would be a fantastic conclusion. So I've enjoyed that so much. That came in second. The Tag Team Classic, I loved the storyline. I thought it was great. I really like what Tibby did with this overall. I appreciate everyone who was involved with it and everyone who, really put on fantastic shows. I know Lucha Country really dominated this. You got Brian and then you got Trance. Really good players here. It's hard to compete with 2 stellar players like that overall. But the interactions between the teams were solid. I don't always know if the matches were the best, if I really enjoyed the matches all that much. But I did enjoy the fact that we had this tag team tournament and the interactions that people had. It was fun to watch. Ashley Moore has lost her damn mind. I was entertained by it. Wasn't my favorite storyline, but watching Ashley Moore just completely descend into madness after what I would call a failed face run has been a relief to see, because Ashley Moore is one of those characters like Randy Orton. Randy Orton doesn't work very well as a face. Ashley Moore does not work very well as a face, works well as a heel. So her stalker-like qualities and craziness into, looking into finding weaknesses to Valk was a good storyline, was well written. That came in with 5 votes. The Lockhorn Challenge got 5 votes as well. It's always kind of exciting to see who's going to come out, who's going to face him in these matchups week to week. Hope they continue. Trey Golden, I can beat H2O. This was probably one of my least favorite storylines because H2O had defeated him so handedly. At Lucian and Rusty had made this really big impact that I said to myself, okay, it's Rusty's turn to challenge now. And sometimes we move too fast for this, so I understand why there was this want for Trey to get another shot at it. We don't want to burn through feuds too fast. We don't want to burn through matches too fast. So I get it. I definitely hope Rusty's the next person to challenge here. I think Trey needs to fight Danny Watt and reestablish himself, get back on track. Joshua Tucker declares war. I know a lot of people are like, Salami Kane's not on this list, Horseman's not on this list. I know, I get it, but ultimately it really came down to the simple fact: how can you rank this storyline above so many other really great ones? Justifiably, can I say it was better than Trey versus H2O? Yeah, probably. Can I say it might have been better than the Lockhorn Challenge? Yeah, because that's essentially just matches itself. So in terms of storyline, it's a little bit more prominent. So I get where you guys are coming from, but ultimately Kane didn't make the list. He just did not get enough support. Horseman did not make the list because he just didn't get enough support. JT did not make the list because he just didn't get enough support. But they're on the list. They're on the surveys. They're getting reactions. You got to think like this. Just a few months ago, 5 months ago, they weren't getting any love whatsoever. They're making progress. I think that's a greater indication of future success than someone who hotshots it right up onto the list because they had a stellar match, they were involved in a storyline for 1 month, and then boom, they're on. Ultimately, they're making progress. That's good to see. I do agree, Blaine and Debbie, if those two were taken off the list and they were tied with Everett, they were tied with Everett. It's, I get it. ultimately they held the tiebreaker. I tried to be as honest and fair as possible, but I would happily have replaced them with Rust and with Everett. I think that would have been good. Everett heel turn. I've been aware of the heel turn. I think a few of us haven't been quite aware of it, and it's been really subtle, so I can see where it would happen that people don't really realize that he's going heel, and maybe they didn't think it was going to happen so soon, but I've enjoyed watching it. Everett has done a fantastic job. I think when Doc Green turned heel, I think a lot of us believed, oh shit, it's gonna be Everett that turns on Doc Green, and they did the reverse. It felt very much like the Shield situation where we all thought Dean Ambrose was going to be the one that turns, and it ends up being Seth the one that turns. Ultimately, it probably benefited both of them in the long run because they both got a chance to do what they wanted, and they both have experience, working on the opposite ends of the spectrum now. One of them has worked as a complete babyface and has worked as a complete heel. Good for him. And Everett has worked in the middle, kind of this, tweener character, and then has worked on the babyface side of things. So I think ultimately it's good for them. The Millionaire Tag Brigade targets Doc Green. Only got 3 of the votes. I get why it happened. The promos were intermingled with the Roadhouse RPs. I really appreciate that too. Thank you guys so much for being involved with that. I hope that you guys continue to be involved with that. And if anyone wants to be involved with that, just let me know. But I see why it didn't score as well as the other ones. Identify the 2 best matches from previous weeks of Riot and Turmoil. This is why Jess was ranked separately from Court. The method is here, if the 2 people that are in a tag team are relatively closely ranked to each other, or if one of them is completely off the list, such as CQC, they had this happen a few times, where one of them was on the list in really strong position, and one of them just missed it. I would put them together because they were working together to make it happen. But Court and Jess, they were separated, but they both made the list. And this is the big reason why Jess versus Ortiz was the runaway favorite match at 15. 60% of you voted for that one. And Jess did a fantastic job. That was a great match. I voted for that match. That was one of my votes. Definitely loved that match. B17 versus Parker. I don't know why it got 6 votes, but somehow it came in the second place. I didn't think it was that great of a match. I got my butt whooped pretty well. I made a bit of a comeback at the end. I think I got him red. Don't recall, but I know that I ate 2 finishers. And the big reason why I voted for Parker is influential. Fantastic job to Parker. Azu versus Jupiter, or Dupley, whatever the hell you want to call him nowadays. That was at 6 votes. That was tied. It was a good match. Loved it. It was something that, like I said, I like the Azu challenges where he's got these random people coming out, and Azu is really a strong character to work off of. He's grounded, submission-based holds. It brings a unique perspective to matches that you haven't seen until recently when people started to utilize submissions a little bit more. Before that, Spider was the person who introduced and kind of showed a lot of people how to use submissions to wear down your opponent, and you can do damage that way. So we're seeing a lot more people do that, and I like that. Shep versus KD was also tied. Shep versus KD was a really strong match ultimately, but I felt Shep pretty much took it to KD in that situation. KD was just, the usual wrecking ball of the human being, hard to keep down. Max Edwards versus TY. I thought it was an average match, so it was an okay match. I actually ended up voting for WD versus Blaine. I thought that was a barn burner. I thought that was a match that was really good. You saw myself and Quartz just going at it against each other. We didn't give a fuck about the reversal situations. We just hit each other. We threw each other around. There were finisher reversals. There were majors. It was a good match. I liked it. Ultimately, that's why I voted for it. Hollywood Country versus... Or not Hollywood Country, Hollywood USA versus Lucha Country at 4 votes. And this kind of comes back to what I said before. I don't necessarily know if the matches were always that great, because if you look at the tag matches, that one got 4 votes. Lucha Country versus Golden Cobra only got 1. Hollywood USA versus B2O only got 1. Hollywood USA versus Golden Cobras only got 1 as well. So ultimately, matches weren't the best quality tag matches we've seen. Azu versus Parker. Excuse me. Yeah. Azu versus Parker versus Sanders. That only got one as well. That's the match where Parker secured himself the right to, fight for the for the championship upcoming here. So, good on him. What 2 matches are you most looking forward to at Consequence? Rex versus B17 got 17 votes. Trance versus Ortiz got 15. Ultimately, I came down on the side of thinking, hey, Ortiz versus Trance is the match I'm most looking forward to. Lucha Country versus Question Mark. We didn't know. Got 7. Ultimately, it ended up being a really good match in terms of comp. It was a really strong one. It wasn't the best tag team match, but ultimately it was a strong comp match, and that's what we are. We're a hybrid league, so those are going to happen. Moore versus Velk got 4 votes. Great for them. Trey versus H2O only got 2. I heard a lot of people say, hey, we've seen this match already. Tucker versus Blacksmith, 2. Baker versus Marshall, 2. Jerome Hamilton versus Doc Green only got 1. I understand that people are like, hey, that's bullshit. They should have been higher than that. I get it, but ultimately you get you only got 2 votes here, and it's hard to justify it over a lot of the other matches that were on the list. So ultimately, that's how everything fell. I think that the match was overall great. I think there was a lot of great things from the show. There were a lot of things I wish were better. I definitely wish the tag team match was a little bit more, visually appealing, but it was a good comp match. Velk got run over by Moore. Velk's retiring, so that's kind of a downer. H2O versus Trey, though, however, was the match of the night, in my opinion. It really held up very well under scrutiny after a rewatch, and you're like, damn, Trey was, really close to winning, and I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. So ultimately, good job to everybody. Keep it moving forward here. We're headed to Summerside, and Jay has said it before, there's only so many matches that are going to make the card, and like I said before, I know that these rankings can be, they can cause division, they can cause people to get a little upset. Try not to let it bother you. I know that when I've been off the rankings, and I felt I should have been on it, I was peeved. I was like, damn it, I could have done better. But ultimately, that's a big reason why I always try to do better. Is if I fall off the rankings or if I'm lower than I think I am, I'm like, hey, what is it that I need to do to better appeal to make a bigger impact to people moving forward? And Doc Green and Antonio Everett are a prime example. If I was to do this next week, I guarantee you they would be on the list. If I was to do this next week, Russ would be on the list as well. Someone would be, 3 people would be off of it pretty quickly. Doc Green is somebody I just think should be challenging for the title or the tag team championships, and I think that's exactly what we're going to see. So I'm really looking forward to that. If I haven't talked about you, I'm really sorry. I promised I was going to keep this under 30 minutes. I'm running out of time here, so thank you all so much. I hope you had a fantastic time. I hope you guys are enjoying yourself in OCW. Remember, keep up the good work. Everyone loves you here for the most part. Don't let Paul Pugh get under your skin. He's playing you, so try not to get too worked, guys. Ultimately, have a great night, have a good time, and I will see you guys later.